Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where today, thanks to Gene Buttman Ford in Ypsilanti, Michigan, we're driving this 2013 Ford Fusion SE, a car that has a lot of sentimental meaning to me because my dad used to have a 2013 Ford Fusion SE, and this is actually the car that I took my driver's test in when I was 16 years old, going to get my license. Obviously it wasn't this exact car. My dad's was white with the sport appearance pack, and this one we have here in front of us today is pretty basic. Now, Ford offered a few different powertrains in 2013 for the launch of the second generation Ford Fusion: a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, a 2-liter Ecoboost, and then finally the mid-grade, which is what we have here today, the 1.6 liter Ecoboost turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, making 178 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. In today's car, we have a 6-speed automatic, though Ford would actually sell you a 6-speed manual transmission. I remember trying to convince my dad to order the 6-speed manual when he spec'd his out in 2013, but ultimately we ended up with the same configuration as this car, the 6-speed automatic. And this one is front-wheel drive, though Ford would also sell you all-wheel drive in this. Looking back, it's interesting to think about all of the different configurations you used to be able to get with cars. Now, this started at $23,000 in 2013. This one as spec, which is super basic. The only options it has are the 1.6 liter Ecoboost and some all-weather floor mats, was only $25,000. And I mean, what does that get you today? Like a Nissan Versa? Does Nissan still make the Versa? I don't know. If they did, it would probably cost about what this did in 2013. But I've been wanting to film one of these for a couple of reasons. We filmed the Fusion Sport a couple months back, and that one had a hideous rotational noise that Gene Buttman Ford did eventually end up taking care of. But I wanted to film the basic one because this is the one that's kind of nostalgic for me. I spent a ton of time learning how to drive behind the wheel of one of these, and I'm excited to take you guys all out on the road today and show you what that's like in a bit of a downtown commute, as I think the sun comes out. It was just pouring rain, as you can see, but Michigan's a bit bipolar. So why don't we go ahead and poke around this second gen Fusion, and then we'll go out on the road and we'll show you what it's like to drive. Or this one is just a Fusion because it's missing the I on its badge. I'm sure that wouldn't be too hard to replace if you really wanted to. Power trunk release, and here's what I love so much about these cars, is this was a proper car. It was a proper size. In fact, this was the last sedan that Ford ever sold in the US, and just about every dimension of it makes perfect sense. I mean, look at this trunk. You could fit like 6 of me in here. You could fit a mountain bike with the seat folded down. I mean, there are just so many solutions here with the size of the second gen Fusion. And I think actually under the trunk floor, yep, we have a compact spare. Check that out. Very good. Ford had pretty much thought of it all. And this was a global platform as well. This was sold as the Mondeo in Europe, and this was a first in a while. We had the Ford Contour in the US as well, which was sold as the Mondeo in Europe, but I think this was a little bit more similar as far as just the overall appearance. This is essentially exactly what you would have gotten in Europe, and the Europeans can chime in the comments. But the coolest thing about this when it came out is everyone thought it looked like an Aston Martin. You look at the front of this, and there's this famous scene from the Top Gear UK news segment where Jeremy flashes a picture of this on the screen and asks Hammond and May, what do you think that car was? And they both said Aston Martin. So there were all of these sort of news articles going around saying Ford's copying Aston Martin, even though I think at the time they maybe had a stake in them. But the front end of this car is pretty iconic, and I think overall the design of it is nice. I mean, it's just a very simple looking car. This would have been Ford's answer to things like the Honda Accord, the Toyota Camry, the Hyundai Sonata. And now they've just completely pulled out of the market altogether. The SE got you some nice aluminum wheels. As you can see, these were the standard ones, and we're actually on a Michelin Cross Climate 2 today, so we'll see how those are as well, on a 235/50R17 squared setup. Now, my dad's car had the Sport Appearance Pack. I believe that had an 18-inch wheel, and it had a spoiler on the back, and it had a leather-wrapped steering wheel and some other things, but this one is just about as standard as they get, and I like that because this is kind of what I want to show off. You guys know that I like base models as well, and Even though this isn't the total base, Ford would have also sold you the Fusion S, which had less than this. But let's try out this back seat, which is also a familiar place, because I rode around with my parents, of course, a lot in the back of the Fusion. But here we are at 5'11", sat behind myself. I've got plenty of room back here, plenty of headroom, plenty of legroom, and there are amenities. You've got a fold-down console with some cup holders. You've got some rear climate vents, which there are still some new cars that don't have rear climate vents. You've got a little charger, which whoever traded this in left their little USB guy in here. 2 seat back pockets. Let's go up front and show you this 1.6 Ecoboost under the hood. Eventually, Ford switched to a slight change of plans. That feels very tight, and I don't want to risk this video by popping the hood and then the hood cable snapping and this not opening again. So we'll just talk about the engine while we stand in front of the car. But Ford did actually eventually switch to a 1.5 liter after I think only 1 or 2 model years. So the 1.6 is only in the earlier cars. But 1.6, that's proper displacement. That's rally spec. All right, let's jump in and go for a drive. Single exhaust tip. Easiest way to tell a 2 liter is you have the dual exhausts that are kind of shaped like pizza crusts. This one's got a couple little cosmetic little bumps and bruises here and there, but it's the perfect representation of a 12-year-old used Ford, God, 13 years old now, it's 2026, of a 13-year-old Ford Fusion. This one's got like 80,000 miles on it, which is pretty normal. It's got normal wear you can see on plastic bits inside. And also, if I can get the key out of the correct key out of my pocket, switchblade key. There you go. And it's quite cold out, so I want to start this immediately. The iconic "I'm a Ford" chime in, I think, its most historic configuration there, just very basic. Inside, center console, some cup holders, some places to put things, actually. A pretty intelligent center console there. And that's about it. I mean, this is a pretty basic interior, especially considering this was towards the bottom of the trim level. So we don't have automatic climate control. We've got a CD player. We have this tiny little screen, which doesn't have a backup camera. We have the regular analog gauges in this car, which is what my dad had in his. So this is nostalgic sitting in here as well. Little display in the middle to show you things like fuel economy and distance to empty and temperature. And then we've got some pretty nicely placed air vents. This one on the left is broken. That one's seen better days. But if anything, these videos should let you know what's normal to be, I suppose, broken on a very average used car. We do still have automatic headlights, even though you don't have automatic climate control. Some buttons on the steering wheel, but not too many. And since this doesn't have the sport pack, we don't have the leather-wrapped wheel. We instead just have one made out of polyurethane, which I don't super love, but it'll do the trick for today. Before we head out on the road, I want to try and pair my phone to this ancient Ford sync system. I'm going to do that by, well, I guess first turning it on and then clicking phone. There you go, sync phone. Go through my 50,000 cars that I've paired to. I used to do this all the time. I worked at the Ford dealer when these were new, and I remember when senior citizens would come in, it was my job to pair their phone to their car. How did you used to do this? I think it's trying to pair to an existing phone. So maybe menu? Oh wait, that's, okay, you got the arrows here. Radio, audio settings, display settings. That would be wrong. Oh, connect Bluetooth device. Yes, that is what I want. Okay. iPhone 13. Nope, that's still wrong. End. Oh, how did I get there now? Menu. Or wait, no. Phone. Set primary phone, set Bluetooth on off, delete device, delete all devices, return. Add Bluetooth device. There it is.
Press OK to begin pairing a device.
I have done. Oh, okay.
Search for sync on your
There it
device
is.
and enter the pin provided by sync.
Hands free. Pin 661399 pair. You used to have to like put a number in to be able to pair your phone. Now it takes 3 seconds. And
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions
There it
and
is.
use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Yes.
To use this device for Bluetooth audio, change your source to Bluetooth audio in the media menu.
Oh, we've got Bluetooth audio too. Yes. I thought these had that. We'll be able to do a sound system test on this base sound system. This didn't have the Sony.
Line in. Please say a command.
Bluetooth audio.
Bluetooth audio.
Oh, check it out. Okay, we're going to save this for later, but I just wanted to confirm that that would work. Okay, let's put the phone in this suspiciously perfect iPhone Max shaped cubby and go for a drive. Into reverse, there's no backup camera, but some of these did actually, when they mandated this, they did have little baby backup cameras. I don't know that the Fusion ever did, but like the Focus and the Fiesta, they had little baby backup cameras. Okay, here we go. Let's get this downtown and see what it's like to live with the earliest of the second-gen Fusion. I got into this whole thing doing car reviews and getting press cars, I think 1 year after they discontinued the Fusion, because this ran, the second-gen ran from 2013 to 2020. And I started doing this whole thing around 2021, so I just missed the boat on being able to drive new press car Ford Fusions. But it's okay. The first thing I noticed, and actually something I didn't remember, is that this has one of those stupid BMW-style turn signals that bounces back to center. And I didn't remember my dad's having that, but I guess it must have, because it was also a 13, so I don't know why it would have had a different turn signal. And this car only weighs about 3,400 pounds, so, 178 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque is not a lot, but it's ample power. I remember I used to think this was pretty quick as a 16-year-old driving this around, but every time I get into one of these cars now that I've driven so many other things, it reminds me how good we used to have it, because this is just such a nice, honest, easy platform that just makes sense for everyone. I mean, everyone should just drive a Ford Fusion. Get around this lovely Chevy Blazer. And a lot of people still do. If you live in Michigan, you know this because Ford Fusions are just everywhere. But it's just such a shame that Ford pulled the plug on this in 2020 and didn't give it an opportunity to go into its third generation. All right, it's greasy out and we're on a cross climate, but let's put this 6-speed auto into sport. And we'll use our little manual mode, which I had lots of experience with back in the day as well. Into third. Let's go second. Will it give me second? Yes, it will. It's not bad. I wouldn't say it has gobs of power, but it's got enough to get you out of the way. We'll go over here and we'll do an acceleration and see if we have any traction off the line. Inputs on this car are really nice too. I mean, throttle, brake, steering. Steering is super light, easy to maneuver when you're in parking lots and things. And this was just a great car for me to learn how to drive on when I was a teenager, because everything is so straightforward. And I think that was what was so nice about these cars from the beginning of their existence until they phased out, is they were just such a nice, easy option for people. We'll get this off the line up here. I think traction control is in here, so we're just going to leave it on and see how it behaves. Put it in S and we'll roll into it. I think it just bounced itself off the rev limiter. Did you guys hear that? Okay, I kind of want to... Ooh, spicy downshift. How do I get this? Settings, driver assist. There it is. Okay, I knew there was a way to turn traction off that was mildly irritating. Ford was actually one of the first companies to take away buttons for things that should have had buttons, like traction control. Try and get it off the line here one more time. There you go. A little bit of a better launch. And like I said, you know, this is not a fast or really even super engaging experience, but that's not what this car is about. Even the 6-speed, which, let's be honest, it's a little bit of a slush box, but even that does a pretty good job here. Now to turn traction back on, I have to do this whole thing over again. There you go. Ride quality, pretty soft. I don't really want to say floaty, but borderline floaty? A little bit of torque steer. I don't think this little 1.6 Ecoboost makes a bad sound either. Look at these downshifts it's pulling in S mode. Pretty decent traction from these Michelin Cross Climates. I don't know that I've ever driven on Cross Climates. Let's put this back into D. It's the closest you had to a drive mode, was just putting the gearbox into sport. But I think just everything about the way that this interior was set up is just about perfect. Seating position, which, by the way, I meant to mention this in the beginning. This is a power seat. For as kind of basic as the rest of this interior is, you do get a power seat with lumbar. Very nice. But everything in here is set up just about right. I mean, everything's within reach. All of the controls make sense. I think the steering wheel, not only is it pretty, it's a nice shape. It feels good in the hands. The dashboard is nice. The vents are placed nicely. The shifter feels great. Cup holders are in the correct position. And the wipers, they go in a weird way. In opposite ways. Does anyone else do this, or was it just Ford back in the 2010s? I always thought that was funny. The Focus, and I don't know that the Fiesta did it, but the Focus and the Escape of this era did that too. It's so funny. Don't do it, Mr. First Gen Fusion. There are Fusions just absolutely everywhere in Michigan. Every other car, seems like. This is standard procedure. You've got a mile-long entrance ramp and you still merge going 50. Let's do kickdown. Pretty good, honestly. And coming in here behind another second-gen Fusion, because that's the way it goes. Now, you guys will have seen, I think earlier this week, depending on when I post these videos, I also drove a 2004 BMW X3 from Gene Buttman today. And that was a little loud on the highway. This, oh my God, that's the exact spec that my dad's was. Platinum white with the Sport Appearance pack. That's the, in fact, that could be his old car. You never know. We sold it to a guy locally. Okay. Anyway, this is actually remarkably quiet on the highway. I'll give you a second to observe the NVH. It's a pretty windy day out today too, but I mean, you don't have to raise your voice to have a conversation in the cabin. Ergonomically, this is pretty nice. The seat is comfortable. I like the sort of cloth that Ford was using in this time. It's kind of like polyester-ish. It's a little plasticky, but it seems to be a little bit more stain resistant, and especially with these seats being black, I mean, you've got even less of a concern there. But otherwise, ergonomically, it's good. You've got a decent enough surface for your elbow here with the center console lid, and then the driver's door panel is pretty soft too. Again, driving by this abandoned AMG GT. It's still there. I drove by a couple hours ago, and nobody's stolen it yet or stolen any parts off of it, so preserving some faith in humanity, I suppose. I also love the way that they used to do these mirrors. Now, if you guys watch the Topher's videos, you know, anytime he buys a car, he buys those little like blind spot mirrors off of Amazon and sticks them to the corner. But Ford used to just put them in from the factory. You can see the little upper left-hand corner is a blind spot mirror. But highway manners in this are really nice. This car does feel like it's been well cared for as well. It feels like it's been maintained, even though the previous owner ran a curb over and hit something with the driver's rear. They kept up on their suspension work. This feels like it has fresh ball joints and struts and all the things. It's quite good. And a nice Michelin tire too. That's usually how you know. If the tires on the car are made by a brand you have heard of and they have good tread, recent date codes, usually you know that the car has been well looked after. I love the gauges in these cars, and I drive so many new cars. I'm driving an Ioniq 5 this week, which you'll see over on the Winding Road Magazine YouTube channel. Every time I drive a new car, it makes me appreciate actual gauges more and more. I mean, this is just a simple gauge setup. It's blackface gauges with blue needles, but you don't get this anymore. And I don't know if it's cost cutting. It is, I'm sure it's cost cutting, but there was a specialness to gauges, and Tedward talks about this too, about how you appreciate little things like this on cars when you're a car enthusiast. And the Fusion isn't necessarily an enthusiast car, but I think if it came out today, it would be. Just something to think about. And as we end our stint on the highway, let's quickly test out this bass sound system and see how this sounds. Okay, not great. I remember the one in my dad's being not great either. But Ford would sell you a Sony system, which I think you could spec on the SE if you got like the SE technology package or whatever. And then I think it was standard on the top trim titanium, and then eventually the Fusion Sport like we drove in the last Fusion video. But even though this sound system is not great, I do like the location of these tweeters, how they have them, like the speaker grill kind of integrated with the lock and unlock button. It's just kind of a nice touch. I love the way all of this is tuned though. There's no peakiness to this 1.6 Ecoboost, because around this time, I mean, the first gen Fusion, it was only either a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder or a naturally aspirated V6. So adding a turbo to the Fusion was new for the US market. I don't know if the Mondeo ever did prior to this, but in the US we didn't. So I think to kind of ease people into this, they did make this behave kind of naturally aspirated. I mean, there's not really a ton of turbo lag. Just hearing this kind of like go through the gears is so nostalgic. The little buzz and rumble of this 1.6 liter. Also, I gotta say, I love a car with an actual shifter. So let's go ahead and get this thing into downtown. We'll kind of evaluate some of its maneuverability and a final consensus on ride quality. But what I've come to remember, because this video has just been a trip down memory lane, is just how nice and comfortable the Ford Fusion was and how much we took this car for granted. Because it is just nice. It's just a nice experience. Over some potholes, 17-inch wheel, doesn't matter. I've had no lurchiness or weird gear changes at all with this 6-speed automatic. I've got no weird clunkiness from this car at all. I can't imagine something like this is expensive to maintain. I know the later rendition of this engine, the 1.5 liter, was a bit of a nightmare. I don't know that the 1.6 was bad or as bad. But the cool thing about this is, back when this car was new, it was normal to offer multiple different engines across the same trim. I mean, you could have a Fusion SE with any of the 3 engines. Ford would sell you a 2-liter all-wheel drive Fusion SE. You didn't have to get the titanium in order to have the top trim. And I think a lot of things today are way too grouped. I like when you could have like individual option choices. Like you look at the Monroney for this car, which I have and I'll have down in the description for you. The only 2 cost options are the 1.6 Ecoboost and the all-weather floor mats. That's it. Otherwise, this is a base SE. It's just, things used to be more fun. Like, cars were more fun. I mean, this was the same era where Ford would sell you a bright green Ford Fiesta with tribal graphics on the side from the dealership. So, I don't know. I think as a society, we're becoming too boring. Everything's just a gray crossover. Bring cars back. Ford, please, bring cars back. I mean, even build quality in here is pretty nice, apart from this vent being broken. Everything in here still feels pretty well taut. I mean, nothing is really rattling in this interior. You press on stuff, it doesn't creak. You've got knobs to control things. There's a little bit of peelage here on this steering wheel button. This person must have been ending a lot of phone calls with this button. But it's held up well, this car. 12 years later, 83,000 miles. The 1.6 pulls strong. The 6-speed shifts through all the gears like it should. The suspension feels great. This is one of those cars that does feel like it was built to last. So let's get this into the city after Mr. Cyclist. And we'll wind this up the parking structure. Ooh, that is some bright sun. This will be it. Auto down driver's window. That's good. Pulled up here.
Please select an event from the screen menu.
It's actually at a good height to grab a ticket as well, though that visor is not tight enough, just like the X3 we just drove. Okay. Automatic headlights coming on there. You can see, for the most part, white lit gauges, but those blue needles do stay consistent. And then all this stuff in the middle lights up blue as well. So it's kind of like a blue/aqua vibe here. But maneuverability here is nice too. The steering has a good lightness to it. It's not pinky light like you're in like an old Cadillac or a Mercedes or something, but it's good enough. I mean, it's easy enough to where just no one really ever has to put thought into steering this Fusion. So that's just about gonna do it for this little trip down memory lane. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me while I just drown in nostalgia here in this 2013 Fusion. But this is a car that I think a lot of enthusiasts could appreciate, even though to its core it's not really an enthusiast car. But I think kind of, 12 years after it's come out, it's a little bit more appreciated. And if you could find one of these with a manual transmission, they did exist. They were very rare. They made them, I think, all the way up until the facelift. So they made them until 2016. So 4 model years of manual transmissions. They're out there. They're very rare, but you may be able to find one if you're lucky. And then you've got a little 1.6 turbo, 6-speed manual, little sedan. And that's quite fun. So if this is a car that you've overlooked, or if you live somewhere where every other car isn't American, I know this is pretty unique to Michigan. We see these everywhere. But if you live somewhere where maybe you haven't considered one of these, this would be pretty cool. Gene Buttman Ford's got this one listed for about $8,000. You can find them cheaper, you can find them more expensive. This one is pretty middle of the road, but these were available in so many different configurations that you can kind of just pick your poison with what you want. And if you really want the enthusiast-oriented Fusion, you can get the Sport, which had the 2.7 Ecoboost V6 truck engine, which I think is just great that they did that. So let's get this pulled up onto the roof of the structure, which is filling up quite a bit now. There's a G82 where I parked the X3 earlier. That's pretty sweet. But we'll just get this pulled up here. And we'll give you guys one last look at it. We'll just pull it like over here. Cool. Electronic parking brake, which I'm not going to use because I never trust them in old cars. But let's get the switchblade key out of the ignition. We'll fold that back down. Pretty attractive looking key, honestly. Ford used this key beyond the Fusion for the F-150, and in fact, they may actually still make this for like super basic F-150 XLs. Someone can confirm or deny. Lots of construction going on today. But one last look here at the 2013 Fusion. It's an attractive shape altogether, I think. I like that sharp body line that goes through the door handles. But that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you have any questions about this car, please ask. But that'll do it. You guys requested more used cars, so we're trying to fill that void in the channel, and I hope this is one you enjoy. So thank you again so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care. There's somebody operating that crane, I think, and that crane over there. Check it out. Active construction. All right, see ya.